Welcome everybody back to Boost Motion, guys. And today, you already know, we're gonna talk about it. How are you? I'm gonna. I don't want to laugh about it, but guys, how can we make our VR30s last up to 200,000 miles? So I'm gonna give you guys my personal opinion, guys. Let's jump into the video. Welcome everybody back to Boost Motion, guys. And good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Thank you. Welcome everybody back. Welcome everybody back to the channel. First thing, shout out to my whole Boost Emotion family. Guys, I already know that you hit the like button. So thank you guys for your support. Also, please, guys, watch the ads. It really helps out the channel so much. It's one of the best ways for you guys to give back. And if you're new to the Boost Emotion channel, I am Boost Emotion. I'm a Nissan Infiniti enthusiast, car enthusiast, but also I report the news. So don't shoot the messenger. But this video is going to be an informative video because honestly, I've been in this community for quite a long time. I've been in the car community for quite a long time. And just like anybody who wants to know, how do you keep your car running tip top shape so that it can last you guys really long? Now, I understand that, particularly me, I am a car YouTuber, so I don't really stay in cars for that long. But one of the biggest things that I really do whenever I get a car is I want it to be able to start every day and get me from point A to point B. Right. So that's why I necessarily stuck with Nissan Infiniti because they have a pretty decent proven driver. I would say driving record of like making decently reliable cars. Right. So knowing that, the question was for the new 2016 and up VR30s, that's in the Q50, Q60, and now the Nissan Z. How do we make these motors last up to 200,000 miles? Now, I know some of the commenters are going to just jump in and automatically just go to the comments. The VR30 is trash. I had to replace my motor in the first 10,000 miles, whatever, right? We used to seeing this, but in this platform, those people are a super minority. Because when you want to sit there and you start to break down exactly what happened and how the car got there, most of the time, sorry for some of the guys who've been watching, you're beating on the car, you're modifying the car. It wasn't like you drove this car like a granny from point A to point B and the motor just went. No. So it may have happened to one of you guys. I don't know about the rest of you guys. It's a very smaller percent of what actually happened with these guys. So, anyways, let's jump into the question. And the question says, it's clear. Real question on here is how to take care of your Infiniti Q50 and make the turbos last very long. I don't beat on a car and the transmission in general. How do you make the car last at least 200,000 miles? Now, this question came from Infiniti Q50 Q60 community on Facebook group. So definitely check out. There's a lot of useful information in there. I would say in the last 2, 3 years, the content of it has changed because we now have a more influx of people. And once again, some of you guys ask the same old question: what's the best oil to use? What's the best brake pads? I have this check engine. Like, what does it mean? It gets a little bit repetitive, but when this first community first started, it was very informative, and people really were trying to help each other. So, in my first opinion, as this person even just draw out the first thing is change your oil every 3 to 5 thousand miles. They say don't use Mobile One and don't use 020. Also, change air filters relatively often. Once again, I think that's very subjective depending on your climate and where you specifically live. The reason why I'm saying that is people would say Nissan recommends using 0W20, right? 0W20 oil is mainly for mainly for economy, so you can get the best fuel mileage out of the car, right? And in that case, it makes sense. It was tested on that, but you can use 5W30 also. They recommend going to 5W40 in the hotter summer months, and that's what the people don't understand. There's a temperature chart, and usually that 0W20 is when the temperatures are below a specific amount of degrees or in Celsius. But once you go above a certain temperature in ambient air outside, they want you to switch over to a 5W30. So my first recommendation is number one, I do agree. Change your oil every 3 to 5 thousand miles. I think that the service manual was even saying 10,000 miles. No, every 3 to 5 thousand miles, depending on use. If you do drive your car a lot more spirited than the average day person, you should do it every 3,000 miles. But if you're the average person that gets on a car driving the highway, nothing really racing, nothing, just really just honestly enjoying the car, 5K is fine. Number two, I also would recommend using I would use a heavier weight, a 5W30, depending on your conditions outside. But even then, I'm gonna be very particular in the next thing I say. So I don't want you guys to jump on Boost. It's kind of hard to find 0W30. I would say find 0W30 and drive that oil all year round. Because the most people's climates, if you live like in the northern climates, you get the hot temperature of the summer, but you also get the cold temperature of the winter. And remember, the zero is pretty much its cold starting viscosity, how quickly the oil can move around in sub cold conditions. So if you have a 5W30 and it's like 10 degrees outside, it doesn't get to all the critical metal components as fast as a zero would do. And and that's why I would recommend a 0W30. Do I ever recommend going down to a 0W20? I've had people such as Sonic Tune, uh, Sonic Tune, Hussein, and a couple of people in this community that I have live, and we've talked about oil. And some people say, "Yo, 0W20 is good," and some of their oil pressure might have got a little harder when they went to a 0W30. But nonetheless, I will still recommend 0W20, I mean W30 or 5W30 because that's what Nissan recommends, and you stay within that protection zone. Cool. So frequent oil changes and use a slightly heavier weight depending on use. Now, that's one of the biggest, most important things when it comes to oil. Sorry about that. That's one of the biggest, most important things when it comes to an engine. It's lubrication. So the third thing, which should have been the first thing. So don't beat me up. I should have said, look up because most of you guys are gonna get your car pre-owned. You're not getting your Q50 brand new. Okay, so if you're gonna get this car pre-owned, see if you can look up some history, Carfax on it. Maybe give the that VIN number to Infiniti. Give them a call and see if they can look up the service history. If you know that the car had frequent oil changes at Infiniti, or the Carfax showed that it had frequent oil changes and they reported, that lets you know that the person was actually at least seemed like they were up on changing the oil. Doesn't mean that you know the condition of how they drove the car, but at least you know that the car was how often the oil and everything was changed on the Infinity or in VR30, Q50, Q60, or Nissan Z. So that's another thing that I would actually put out there as just look into the history of the car and what you're getting into. If you look into the history and you find out, yeah, the motor was replaced this time, or the issue had this specific issue here, this was fixed on the Carfax, it kind of lets you know how the person might have drove the car. If there was lack of history on top of that. Okay, so history, oil. Now, without this one's gonna be kind of funny. Don't don't beat on me because of it. I would say another way for the last 200,000 miles. This is more of a being proactive than reactive. I would say recommend buying a third party warranty company. Take your time, look up warranty companies that can provide and protect your car properly. And what I'm saying by that is we ought to sit there and we want to be preventative and we want a car to last 200,000 miles. But during that process, we're going to go through certain things that honestly may be costly and expensive. And sometimes that $600, $700 repair could come out of nowhere and you don't have any warranty. That actually happened with me on my Infiniti Q60. My engine ended up changing the wheel bearings when I first got the car. It was not really that much of an expensive thing, but I did have a third party warranty, but they actually didn't cover the car for wheel bearings because I didn't get the proper class. But if I would have had just purchased that specific package of warranty, that repair would have been a $50 deductible or something like that, something super cheap. But nonetheless, I ended up getting a wheel bearings change. So I would recommend also again being preventative and actually doing something like that. Now, so pretty much we already talked about being protecting the car, being proactive, the oil lubrication, the history of the car, and lastly, I'm gonna say because you guys can write below what your honest opinion is, and I want to give you guys my last opinion. Yo, it's not a race car. Guys in the back, that's over there. That's over there. It's not a race car. I think a lot of people there's cars that people get and they are more capable or the type of cars that would induce speed. Like not a lot of people will go get a Toyota Corolla and start speeding on it because they didn't get it for that specific reason. but Infiniti Q50s, Q60s, and even the Nissan Z are more the performance vehicle. So people get it necessarily for the speed. Yes, our mom might be driving, our grandma might be driving it. I get it. But you have a high likely chance of like a young individual like myself or even younger to get this car so they can speed, right? So remember, your driving style correlates directly with the reliability of your car. And I'm using my example for my experience for extreme example. My 2018 Q50, I got brand new leased, brand spanking new lease, right? Bear with me, guys. I'm just coughing. Guess what happened? Look at me. Guess what happened? I have it on my channel. You could go up when I said I blew my turbos. Well, I didn't blow my turbo, but one of the turbos started leaking externally, so it had an oil leak. And I tried to diagnose it, and I thought it was just a gasket, but come to find out, it was a turbo seal. Now, did I have oil? Did I, other than that, do I have drop in oil pressure? No. But there was an external leak that dripped every now and then. Yes. Did it affect the performance of the car? No, I was still pulling quick times at the drag strip and everything. The car wasn't smoking or anything, and it was such a minimal oil leak that it didn't change the amount of oil that was in. Oil level. So I drove the car for another 9 months to a year with that same oil leak. But if you guys go to my channel, I was beating on this car. I was driving it on fast. I did frequent oil changes, but that car was my stop to go traffic. Stoplight warrior. That car, I've done my due diligence. I messed that car. I've had fun with that car, and in under 15, 20,000 miles, I already had a turbo seal that was going. So remember, your driving style correlates directly, linearly, parallel with the reliability of the car. So if you're beating on the car, you can do all the best all you want. You can do everything you can possible. Heat exchangers, all this other extra cooling stuff, but that doesn't mean the car is gonna always run right forever. You're literally the more amount of driving style sorry, the more that you beat on the car over time, the more amount that the car is going to reduce in reliability. That's one of my last things. Now that we have gotten all this stuff out, right? I want to speak to my car enthusiast now, because everyone who gets this car isn't a car enthusiast person. So some of the things I talked about wasn't really for the necessary for the car enthusiast. So this is what I would say for the car enthusiast, because people don't usually wait till the end of the video. I would say get additional cooling, and I would mean cooling for oil. Now, unless you have a red Sport or a 3.0 T Sport, or the Nissan Z should already come with an oil cooler, but majority of Q50s, Q60s don't have an air oil cooler. I would say look into getting an additional oil cooler system. I believe there's a couple of aftermarket companies now that try to make an aftermarket oil cooling system or use an OEM one. You could go to Z1 Motorsports. I think AMS sells the OEM ones too. You could also go to Bonnie and Clyde. I think they make their own aftermarket oil cooler, air cooler. And what the reason why this is important is, depending on where you live, right? If you live in a hot zone, your oil temperatures are going to be right in stop and go traffic, right around 210 Fahrenheit, quite often. And this amount of temperature, as people would say, is it the optimized temperature for your engine oil? Not really. You want it actually a little bit lower, when at 180, 190, but 210, 220. When you're on the highway driving at a consistent mile an hour, the oil temps will come down a little bit. But this stuff directly also correlates to the engine's lifespan. The higher temperature oil usually breaks down a lot quicker. It vaporizes a lot more. Excuse me. It vaporizes a lot more over time, and honestly, that will translate into how good it protects the metal components in your vehicle. Because when oil temperature goes really high, oil pressure goes down, and then things could go bad too. So I would recommend looking into additional cooling for the motor. As people would also sit there and say, to branch off into the transmission, same thing there. Do frequent enough I would say transmission fluid changes. Now, I believe the service manual is about 50 or 60,000 miles. Someone's once again, they're gonna comment below. Change it a little bit earlier. Once again, this is all based on how you drive the car. If you're an A to B person that have a modded car that's just chilling, it's fine. But if you're a person that's gonna be beating on this car and you have additional power, JB4 tune, pure turbos, you have to cut that stuff in half. You're not waiting 50,000 miles to change transmission fluid. You're changing in the first 20 to 25,000 miles. You could check on shoot, there's a couple of YouTubers who already changed the transmission fluid and they immediately sat there and said, yo, the car shifts a lot better, there's not more sluggish, change your transmission fluid. Same thing for the rear differential fluids, front and back. If you do have the all-wheel drive, change this stuff frequent enough and cut down the intervals if you're modded and it has a lot more power. The more additional torque, the more additional power, the more use and abuse. So cut that stuff in half and change it frequent enough. So honestly, all in all, we've touched on plenty of points on how to pretty much keep this car running and running properly. I know you guys are going to probably write some stuff below in the comments to see what I might have missed. But I just wanted to give this as a general basis on pretty much just protecting the car based on lubricants, being proactive on if anything does get bad, that you spend less amount of money if when something does get bad. Also look into the history of the car and also look into additional cooling for specific said vehicles, because at the end of the day, a cooler car will run a lot more efficient and should have technically less problems. So outside of that, guys, you have a good morning, good afternoon, good night. Thank you. I appreciate you guys for banging with your boy Boost. Hopefully this video was informative. I tried my best. Hopefully you guys watched the ad and continue to show your support. Definitely really do appreciate that. So guys, add me at boostinmotion IG, Facebook, and also you can email me at boostinmotion@gmail.com. Otherwise than that, guys, I appreciate it. You guys have a good day. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do appreciate you guys. Love you guys very much. You can also check out the 2 links I posted for some of my other videos. Also, on top of that, if you want to purchase some Boost in Motion merch, definitely check the link that I posted also. And finally, if you've been watching all my videos and you enjoy them, please hit the link to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.